When people picture a narcissist, they picture someone loud, someone who dominates the room, brags about them, needs to be the center of attention. That image is so common that most people have built their entire radar around it. Watch for the loud one. Watch for the bragger. Avoid him. But there's a second type of narcissist that almost never gets caught because they don't look like that at all. They look quiet. They look sensitive. They might even look like the victim in every story they tell. And that's exactly why they're so hard to spot, so hard to leave once you're close to one. Welcome back to Psych 2. Today, we're breaking down covert narcissism, what it actually is psychologically, why it hides so well, and the signs that usually only show up after months or years of being around someone. Let's start with where the term comes from. In 1938, psychiatrist Paul Wink at Wellesley College analyzed decades of personality data and noticed something odd. Narcissism wasn't behaving like a single trait. It was splitting into two distinct clusters. One cluster looked exactly like the stereotype, grandiose, attention-seeking, dominant. The other cluster looked almost like the opposite on the surface, anxious, hypersensitive, prone to feeling neglected and misunderstood. And yet, underneath both clusters sat the same core, a fragile sense of self that depends entirely on other people. That's the covert narcissist. Not loud, not boastful, but running on the exact same engine as the version everyone already knows how to recognize. An engine built around being the most important person in every room, every relationship, every story, without ever having to admit that's what they want. Here's the part that trips people up. A covert narcissist often seems like the least self-centered person. They're modest. They deflect compliments. They talk about how hard things have been for them. So how could this possibly be narcissism? Psychologist Elsa Roningstam's research on narcissistic vulnerability gives us the covert narcissist doesn't lack grandiosity. They hide it. Underneath the modesty sits a private conviction that they're more sensitive, more misunderstood, more deserving of care than everyone around. They don't announce this out loud because announcing it would expose them. Instead, it leaks out sideways through resentment when they're not appreciated, and through a quiet sense of superiority disguised as humility, through being endlessly hurt by people who just don't understand them. Grandiose narcissists want applause. Covert narcissists want sympathy. But both are collecting the same currency, attention that confirms they matter more than anyone else. So what does that actually look like in real life? It shows up in 5 patterns that are easy to mistake for something entirely. The first one, chronic victimhood that never quite adds up. Every job ends because a boss was unfair. Every friendship ends because a friend betrayed them. Every relationship ends because the other person couldn't handle their depth. On its own, any one story sounds believable. People do get treated badly. But over months, you notice something strange. They are never once the reason anything went wrong. Every conflict in their life has the same shape, and they are always standing at the center of it, wounded and blameless. That's not a coincidence. It's a narrative they've built and rebuilt so many times that it feels like memory instead of performance. The second one, silent withdrawal instead of open anger. A grandiose narcissist explodes when they don't get attention. A covert narcissist disappears. They go cold. They stop replying with the same warmth. They answer in short, flat sentences and let you spend the next 3 days wondering what you did wrong. This isn't shyness or introversion. It's a punishment delivered without ever having to say a punishing word, which means they never have to own the conflict. And you're the one left doing the emotional labor of repairing something you didn't even know was broken. The third one, envy disguised as comment. They rarely celebrate your wins cleanly. Instead, there's always a small addition tucked onto the end of the congratulations. That's great. Must be nice to have the time for. Good for you. I guess some people get lucky. It's subtle enough that you can't quite call it out without sounding oversensitive, which is exactly the design. Psychologist Jonathan Cheek, who has spent years researching covert narcissism, found that this quiet comparison and resentment loop is one of its most consistent markers. Not the desire to win, but the inability to tolerate someone else winning. The fifth one, and the hardest to see, they make you feel like the difficult. This is the pattern that keeps people stuck the longest. Because a covert narcissist so rarely raises their voice, so rarely does anything that looks obviously cruel, you end up questioning your own read of the situation instead of theirs. You feel hurt, confused, quietly resentful, and then you feel guilty for feeling that way because on paper, nothing happened. That gap between what you feel and what you can point to is where covert narcissism does almost all of its damage. It doesn't leave bruises you can show anyone. It leaves a slow erosion of your own confidence in what you're experiencing. Here's what ties all 5 together. A covert narcissist isn't a manipulator twirling a mustache behind them. Most of the research on this suggests they genuinely believe their own story, that they are the sensitive one, the wronged one, the one who gives too much and gets too little back. That's what makes them so disoriented close to. to. You're not dealing with someone who knows they're doing this. You're dealing with someone whose entire identity depends on not knowing. So how do you actually protect yourself if you recognize this pattern in someone in your life? First, stop auditing yourself. Start tracking. In the moment, every incident feels small enough to the only way to see it clearly is to zoom out. Write down what actually happened without the story attached. Not, they were hurt because I forgot to text back, but I didn't text back for 4 hours and they didn't speak to me for 2 days. Patterns are invisible up close and obvious from a distance. Second, stop trying to win the sympathy comp. You will never outsuffer someone whose identity depends on being the one who suffers. Trying to prove your side of the story to someone who needs to be the victim in every version of events is a fight with no. Disengage from that particular argument entirely.